Gridiron Warriors take the field in an epic battle that is larger than life. It is called Texas High School Football. Only one show can bring the greatest sport from the greatest state into focus. Lone Star Gridiron.
StarGridiron.com. Access the complete history of Texas high school football, over 100 years of information, win-loss records, coaching histories, individual stats, records, and more. Lone Star Gridiron, the authority on Texas high school football.
Hey everybody, welcome back to day 2 of the Lone Star Gridiron UIL State Football Championship live stream. I'm Chris Daly. I'm joined by Brett Swinney and Terry Bennett. How are y'all doing today?
Well, after that last game, I'm doing great.
As much as I would love to go on about that last game, we need to do them in order. But, man, it's a much better day of football today, that's for sure.
Yes, it was better.
So who wants to get us started on the Holly-Refugio game?
All right, Holly, of course, if you're just now tuning in and don't know, Holly beat Refugio 54-28. They used a 28-point second quarter and a 14-point third quarter to really put the game away. This kind of was like Albany versus Mart. I think a lot of people assumed Refugio's athleticism would give Holly a lot of trouble, but I think people were underestimating just how good and how mature and how much of a veteran team this Holly team was. And we saw it today. Roddy Hooper at quarterback. I mean, Austin Compton had a great day at running back.
Yeah.
But Hooper on the day throwing for 279 yards and 3 touchdowns. This is against the defense that had absolutely shut down for most of the game one of the best players in all of the classes in Terry Bussey of Timpson.
Yeah, I tell you, the other thing that came through here to me was the extreme youth of Refugio. I think the big stadium, I think that stage was daunting to them because they never got into their groove.
Yeah, I actually wrote that down, Chris. It's one of the things when at the end of the game I wrote down, I said experience over youth. Holly was returning. They'd already been there. They knew what it was like, and they didn't want to come back a loser this time. And that's what it looked like on the field. I mean, they wanted it more. I was impressed with Compton. He just never went down. He was a bull in a china store. He just ran over everybody. And when he got a free, he found the end zone. He knew how to find it. So just really impressed with him. Also was impressed with Parker on defense. Had 2 forced fumbles, an interception for a pick 6. I think that was probably part of the reason why they got so far ahead was that was a big play momentum-wise. So,
yeah,
definitely.
2 turnovers. Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say I want to welcome Vince and Corey to the show.
What's up, boys?
What's up?
What's going on?
Terry, what were you saying?
I was just going to say the turnovers for Refugio, and as Brett said, and we talked about this on the pregame show, that Refugio had all the state titles and all the runs, but this core didn't, and they were young, and Holly made it last year, and Holly got beat by Shiner, and people forget that game was close last year until the second half, and the Brooks brothers took over. I think Holly was, as I said, the more mature team, and like Brett said, you could tell in the game, they just the theme that we've been saying all of our shows is whichever team makes it a game first and it stops being a state championship moment, they usually win, and Holly did that from the moment the game started.
Yeah, you're right. The youth of Refugio, again, I hate to keep harping on that, but, their last state championship was 2019. These are freshmen and sophomores. None of them were on that team. None of them came on that trip. There's a few players that came on that trip, but the majority of the team didn't. So this was all wide-eyed looking around. Oh, my goodness, look where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like Holly just came in and just took this just flat out. I think they opened the game with a fumble recovery. So a fumble and recovery there. So like Brett said, Compton just was unstoppable. I mean, he's 6'1", 6'2", 220 pounds, just an absolute monster. And I heard the story about him it being injured last year, and
Yeah.
uh was I don't know exactly what how he got injured. I didn't catch that part, but they said that he could have possibly have been paralyzed last year.
Mhm.
And to come back and to score 4 touchdowns and have 100+ yards, in a state game, that's just a miracle. So that dude, he's got he's a senior, but man, like, he's still a kid. Even though he looks like a
Yeah.
grown man, he's still a kid, and he's got room to grow. So, you get to the next level, that's when they start to put weight on you, start to put the muscle
Yeah.
on. So I'm excited for him and to see how far he takes it. Uh Refugio, you just may have to go back to the drawing board, like it didn't
Well,
work
they're
out
going to
this
be
time.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
they're a young football. They're a young football team, like you were saying. Terry was saying about Holly. I mean, you beat them 54-28. Obviously, you can tell Holly was more prepared. They were prepared for the moment, as you would say. They've been there before. They understand what it took. And early in the game, they set the tone and the tempo, and it was a physical game. And
Yeah,
Refugio
very
didn't
physical.
didn't bounce back. We saw the Timpson game when Refugio scored on the just kind of the example of how the game went. The screen pass or the pass that they had against Timpson, where I can't remember the kid's name, but he takes it to the house on the screen pass. No, Holly blew that up. I guess
Ernest
they saw
Campbell.
that one coming. Yeah, they blew that up, and I'm like, well, this is pretty much over. That, like, you could tell Refugio was trying to look for something, a spark to happen.
Hmm.
It wasn't happening. Holly blew that up, and they took advantage of that 54-28 for a state championship game. They were prepared.
Yeah,
And they were
shut.
able to. Oh, go ahead. I'm
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, I
Oh, I
was
was
just
just
gonna
gonna.
say.
Go ahead.
Go
No,
ahead.
no, no, no. Well, I just wanted to say that they were they were able to make plays. I don't want to take anything from them. They were able to make plays. It just seemed like Holly just whatever they did, Holly had an answer for.
Yeah.
So every time they did make a play or did, push the ball and was able to get a score, Holly was just like, all right, we're gonna do it again. We'll come back, we're gonna score again. And honestly, I can't even remember when they got their first score because it felt like Holly just kept scoring and scoring and scoring, and then finally Refugio got in the groove of things, but it was a little too late. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Terry.
No, I was just gonna bring up the points where everybody's talking about the youth, and maybe Refugio kind of blinked. And you look at the first few drives for both teams, and you see that Refugio's first 5 drives are fumble, downs, interception, and fumble. Then they got 2 touchdowns. The problem is Holly's first 5 drives was touchdown, fumble, touchdown, interception.
Well,
I mean, and that's right there is the blinking in the moment at the first of the game.
Yeah,
yeah,
the beginning of the game.
and they were 20-yard drives, so they were pretty easy.
Yeah, especially that first one.
Well, something I wrote down in my notes is they shut down Campbell, which Campbell had a great game against Timpson. He was able to get on the outside and do damage against a fast Timpson team, but Holly completely shut him down. I mean, I want to say he didn't have but maybe a few handful of yards. I just noticed
he had a touchdown. I thought late. I can't remember,
but for the most part, he didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And they
because Holly didn't. I
he
feel
didn't score at all.
Okay, he didn't score. I feel at times, sometimes when coaches go up against a real stud athlete like that, they try to have a swagger, and we're going to put our best corner on him, and we're just going to safety high, and we're going to take care of him. Well, Holly didn't, man. They were like, no, we're not going to let this dude beat us, so we're going to bracket him. Yeah. And they were dropping that slot corner / linebacker. They're all the same in high school at the position. Right. They were dropping him sometimes 3 seconds before the snap. And for whatever reason, Refugio just never figured out, hey, there's 2 guys on him, and probably 3, actually. Let's go to the other side of the field.
Two carries, 8 yards for Campbell.
Yeah. Well, he's primarily a receiver, but he still only caught 3 passes.
Yeah.
Their focus all season, early on, was Campbell, but their focus all season was Isaiah Bland, and they caught Timpson off guard by going to Campbell so much. I mean, they hadn't been using him at all much in the playoffs until Timpson, and they used the heck out of him there. And I guess Timpson wasn't ready for it, but Holly was. They definitely were.
They saw tape last week. They were ready for it.
Yeah, I mean that first half was practically the game.
Yeah,
Yeah, it really was.
Cool. Any final thoughts on this game?
I'm happy for Holly.
First title in school history for Holly.
Yeah, and we've talked this year is a lot of repeats and teams that have at least been here in the last few years. So and I know Holly was back last year, but they lost. So to see a team finally win, kind of like with Albany, it's kind of nice to see a couple of these that haven't won in 60 years winning one.
Yeah,
right.
Is it a trend? Do you think it's a trend?
If you're saying Duncanville's going to win, it's not true.
He's getting ahead.
I'm a big believer in storylines through season. Again, like the year that we had the Hail Mary, like 3 or 4 other games went into overtime, went to the last play. I think the trend is true if Bernie beats China Spring. I think if that happens tomorrow, well, then because you can't really count Wimberley because Wimberley's been back and been there in one state. This is Bernie's first trip to the state championship. So if they pull that win off, well, then I think you do start that trend of the new guys on the block are the ones winning.
Well, I think we as sports writers, we dream up trends. We're meaning making machines. So we can decide that's a trend. We'll say it's just like Corey and his close game thing. He's just making things up.
Well, but I mean, he's kind of right. He's kind of right. You look at Brock. They were in a close one with Whitesboro. They lost. Franklin blew Edna out last week. Refugio beat Timpson in a close one, and they lost. And Holly didn't have a lot of problems with theirs. So,
Chris is gonna be mad because you're feeding against his theory.
That's why I'm doing it. Are you helping him out here? There's no benefit to owning the website, apparently.
No, all right, that's the problem here.
Just a perk.
Nice. Let's jump to the Poth versus Gunter game. Another one that
was not really a game.
Not that exciting.
Gunter, we said this on sideline to sideline. Poth had a wonderful year, and Jeff Luna's done a great job there. Yeah. And just like Franklin, hey, is this a trend? Just like Franklin, he's a hometown boy and all, but Gunter's just Gunter this year. And
they're the better Gunter than they've been in a while.
Yeah, and Matt Diggs and I had that discussion on this pregame show, and he was trying to say that he felt Gunter last year was better. And I'm like, no, they're not. They haven't been as splashy this year because the one weakness they had was finding a consistent quarterback. Well, they found that. But defensively, what Gunter was doing all year, I mean, it was going to take Poth having to create 4 or 5 turnovers. And even then, I don't know if they won. And by the way, Gunter could have easily scored more if they wanted to.
They pulled some starters.
I mean, they could have blanked them. They really could have blanked Poth. So
they pulled starters, and I think noticed in after the third quarter into the fourth quarter, they started subbing out some of their guys. They didn't sub them all out, but they did sub in quite a few backups. I didn't
think it would be that lopsided.
You know, Ethan Sloan, the standout from a couple years ago there, he has shifted his focus to defense. So they're using him a lot more defensively. So they could have put up more points. They were concentrating on being a more complete team and playing some defense because defense does win championships.
Yeah, and this is a crazy stat. 300 in total rushing yards for Gunter. Not one guy went over 100 yards. Bennett had 87. Sloan had 62. Hellman had 58. Overman had 57. And then after that, you started getting into some of the second teamers. But that core right there, when the pistol little option is working, you don't know who's going to get the ball. And that's exactly how they played it. And Poth, man, they tried. I was so impressed with what Gunter's offensive line was doing to post big guys, including number 72, Rankin Ramazinski. That dude is a beast. He's one of the best defensive linemen in 3A. And Gunter just blocked him crazy all game long, double teams, sometimes triple teams, and they took him out of the game until it was too late.
Yeah. Big ups to Gunter's offensive line because, I mean, there were times I'm not the biggest fan of the pistol myself, and so as I watched this game, I was screaming at the TV. I found myself screaming at the TV. I was just like, feel this gap, feel this, and I'm like, no, feel this gap. But you see them, and they were doing it. It's just that whole offensive line was moving everybody out the way. I mean, nobody was missing blocks. It was just, it was beautiful. I mean, I played on the offensive line, so I cherish those type of moments. When you see something like that, that's a work of art to me. So I'm like, man, ain't nobody beating that team. I can see why this turned out to be the way it was.
Vince, you played, so you should be a part of the brotherhood.
Exactly.
The brotherhood.
Where'd you play? Yeah, just sign up, dude.
It's on
I'll do it.
Page LoneStarGridiron.com.
Yeah,
there's a plug
right
right there for you.
There you go. /brotherhood.
Something I noticed that I wanted to bring up here. The Gunner, we talked about their offense. Their defense was incredible tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Both averaging 300 yards per game on the ground. In the first half, they only had 29 yards on the ground. That's 3 yards. I mean, it's 3 yards per game. I think they ran it like 10 times. And only 107 total yards in the whole first half. And 2 of them were passes to Matthew Bunn on 2 plays, or 70 yards worth. So take away that, they hardly had any yards total offense. I mean, Gunner, like you said, Chris, they were focusing on defense, slow and play defense. But I that was what impressed me kind of right off the top is the defense. The offense obviously was scoring too, but if you don't allow any points, you're not going to lose too many games.
I texted guys earlier. I said Poth had the pads popping. I thought Poth came out, they were hitting early in the game, but I'm like, it may be a good game after all. Then, boy, I look up and it's 7-0, and 14-0, and 21-0, and it's 21-0 for a little while. And I was like, you know what? Maybe those pads weren't popping. Maybe I was drinking some. I was drinking some Kool-Aid. I don't know. I was
tell you about that Kool-Aid, boys.
But I look down and I'm like, man, this. But I mean, I did pick Gunner to win. No surprise. But shout out to Poth. I mean, they looked the part in the beginning. And I say it has to early. They did. Mm-hmm. I like the physicality, because a lot of times when you come to a championship game, you want to match the other team's physicality, and I think they did. There was one particular play. I can't remember, the wide receiver got hit, and I'm like, if he got the snot bubbles knocked out of him a little bit, and that was phenomenal. And it's like, it wasn't anything egregious, wasn't a bad play, but it was a hit that you like. And so I'm like, oh, that'll get the cage rattling a little bit and get the game going. Yeah, it didn't turn out that way. I just Gunner they took control. I figured it was gonna take over, but that was a game, man. I don't have anything to say about that. Gunner just could dominate that game.
I've got a crazy stat for you. Okay, so they talked about during the game, I don't know if y'all caught this, that the defensive coordinator's wife is the volleyball coach.
Yeah.
Okay, did y'all hear that? So they won the title back in 2019, volleyball did. And then they won the championship in football. Well, guess what? They did the same thing again this year. They won the volleyball championship and they won the football championship. Kind of a cool
trend.
Thing. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's her 3rd title in school history.
Dope.
So obviously the volleyball team did not have a close game the day before their championship.
They did not. They did not, Chris. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to win.
They did not.
Cool. Well, let's jump to the nightcap, the exciting game, probably clearly the best game so far in what I still hope will be a bunch of really good games. Franklin versus Brock.
Well, I mean, that went, I think, like we all thought it would.
Yeah.
It's one of those where sometimes, and this is no disrespect to Franklin, but Brock was the better team for majority of the game. But Franklin, and I will say the last turnover was absolutely forced. That wasn't a Brock mistake. The kid ripped the ball from him. And by the way, that kid, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. He had been out most of the year, and that's why the defense for Franklin. Yes. Yeah, he had been out for most of the year, and that's why the defense struggled at giving up points through the season. He came back in that Cameron Yo game. We were there for that, and he literally shut down half the field. And in this game, I thought it was interesting. He made the big play, but then he also gave up the touchdown that tied it at 14. This just was a great game. This is one of those games we'll be talking about years from now.
Well, I tell you that opening drive that Franklin had that took up almost the first whole quarter, right before it ended, I'm thinking, oh, geez, this is not going to be a good day for Brock, because they were just matriculating down the field. And then, of course, red zone, they get stopped. And that seemed to be the trend was red zone, everybody gets stopped.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about Franklin, and this is kind of Vince would know. The slot T is a running offense. Everyone knows that.
Yep.
Eventually, and I text the guys. Eventually, you have to pass the ball. Especially
once, right?
At least run. You got to expect at least one pass.
Nah.
And at least remember the Titans. You got to run the football. Okay, but and I mean, and you could tell later on in the game. Franklin had the ball with the last possession. It lasted 5 minutes and 39 seconds, and they just completely just ran the ball. It was nothing Brock could do at the end of the game. They just completely were pushed down the field until they eventually had a goal line stance and they kicked the field goal. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, like they just ran out of gas. Like
you gotta remember too. Now, they did have a third and six,
they had
or seven, or
a few
something like
third
that,
down.
where he did throw the ball. He did throw the ball the one time.
Yeah,
that one pass he threw.
I don't know if Brock wore down because Franklin didn't score a touchdown. Brock did everything right defensively in this game. Yeah. The problem is you have two absolute monster running backs for Franklin. And I said this about the Gunner game last year, and I know they beat Gunner 49-35, but go back and watch that game, and Gunner's defensive line lived in Franklin's backfield, but the three running backs at that time, because you had Malik Murphy there, they just kept stepping out of tackles and having big plays. They weren't having the big plays today, but every time they needed a first down, it seemed like every time Brock was hitting them at the line or behind the line, yet they were falling forward for touchdowns.
Exactly. I was going to mention they kept falling forward, and that wears down on you after a while, especially on a 5-minute drive. That's going to wear down on anybody. Yeah. And I think that's what kind of kept getting them in a position. And I don't know. This is a vote. How many people thought Franklin was going to turn the ball over, punt it, and 5 minutes left in the game? No.
In fact, I literally texted Chris and said, I said, here comes, can Franklin do the 5-minute for the win? Because they were going to win it or lose it on that drive. They were not going to give up the ball.
Exactly. It was 4-down territory anywhere in the field, and they were running regardless.
I agree. Brock looked like the better team at times. The fumbling, the turnovers were just, they were devastating. And Franklin being able to pound the ball the way that they did and just control the clock. I could see this going the other way though. Brock had the ball at the end there.
Oh, I agree. It felt like they figured something out offensively against Franklin.
Yeah. I know it hurts. I know this stings a lot more because you know that if it was you'd be the one holding the trophy right now. So. But they are a great team. Brock is a great team. Had a great season. So
Terry, let me ask you this: since you do a Brock coaches show and you're pretty close with Billy, how old are these kids? I mean,
the whole defense is back. The thing that powered Brock all year long is back. I think all 11 starters. They're going. The offensive line is most of them are coming back, and that's important. Well, and that's important because that O-line struggled a lot early. They finally started to gel. Yeah. They're going to have to replace quarterback. They're going to have to replace skill positions. And I think I want to try to say this without trying to sound mean, but I think that could be an improvement going forward.
I was just going to say that if the next man up in that position will probably be an improvement.
But do not be shocked, and I'll bet bottoms to dollars that we're talking Brock and Franklin next year because Franklin loses Washington, but Jaden Jackson's back. They have a freshman running back that had ran for 500 yards on the season. I think they have 6 or 7 starters on defense. So if they can get through that same district and again through Columbus and Hitchcock, then we're talking them. But I definitely think Brock's back next year.
Yeah, I think the way the game went was Franklin's advantage. If Brock could have somehow gotten ahead and force Franklin out of their game. Because we have a team similar to that in Chapel Hill's district is Palestine. They're run. Well, as long as the game's close, they do well because that's what they do well.
Great with a lead,
right?
Yeah.
But if they could have gotten ahead and forced Franklin to be uncomfortable and have to throw the ball, then I think Brock could have gotten the win. I think the close game favors Franklin just because that's what they like to do, like ball control, and they got the ball last, which worked out. I think otherwise the game goes to Brock just because, like y'all said, I think they figured something out in the second half. They were able to move the ball. They just didn't have the ball last.
Well, I mean, it's crazy to think if the guy, and I can't think who's caught the touchdown, if he steps out of bounds at the 1 and it takes Brock 2 plays to get in, a minute and a half runs off, we're probably sitting here watching overtime at the time. It's always funny how sometimes the big play actually can hurt you at the end of the game because, I mean, like I said, once Franklin was getting the ball, we were just wondering, would they get close enough to kick a field goal or would they actually score a touchdown?
Did y'all notice at the end when they were in the first, second, and goal, did y'all think the Brock player was trying to pull the offensive guy into the end zone?
I thought he was trying to pull the ball.
Yeah. It kind of looked like he was trying to pull him into the end zone so that they would score.
Well, and that's the thing. If you're Brock with a minute left, right when you call that last time out, I'll ask him. I wonder if the discussion was, do we let him score? Because
that's what. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No,
I just say that they needed to do something.
Yeah. So when that happened, I was texting the guys. I said I'd let him score. I was like, I let him score, and I take that minute and I use that minute to draw up a couple of plays. And they've been able to make big plays all night. Just before that, the drive they had, they threw a 40-yard pass. They got them somewhat down the field. I can't remember what happened, how that drive ended.
That's the one that ended with the fumble 2 plays later.
That was the fumble. Yeah.
Yep.
And so in my mind, I was confident in the offense. So I'm thinking, with a minute, man, I can make a lot of things happen with this team and this offense. So I don't want to get the ball with 20, 15 seconds left or anything like that. I don't want them to run the clock out and then me hoping that I have to block a kick to go into overtime. I'd rather rely on my offense that's been proving themselves all night. So that was my thinking. It's a gamble at that point, but you don't have the ball. You got to make a call. So you got to do something.
No, I agree.
That's definitely true.
So, Chris, how can we replay? If we want to replay this game, is there anyone in history we can do that?
Gosh, you're such a you're good at taking cues. Yeah. Actually, see down below Friday Night Legends. And this is a perfect game for this board game. To replay this game, you could play it probably 20 times and it'd go 10 either way. But using Friday Night Legends, you can now make those decisions. Do you try for that field goal, early on, the one they missed, or do you try to go for it and change the entire, layout of the thing? Or, do you throw more, or do you, you decide all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Corey, you've been quiet. What you got?
I don't have anything to say at this point. I've watched the games and they've kind of went my way, except for the first 2. But I'm gearing up for tomorrow. That's what I want to watch. I want to see if I don't want to get too far ahead, but I want to see if the trend is going to happen. That's what I want to see.
Let's go ahead and preview tomorrow's games. Then we also have the preview shows up on the thing. But of the games, what are y'all most excited about?
I want to see if Bernie can beat China Spring. And I think y'all know I'm not going to mention the name. We're from. We represent it. Listen, Bernie's really good, and China Spring's really good, and somebody's got to lose. And the gut feeling is Bernie wins. That's the gut feeling. If I'm going for China Springs, the gut feeling is Bernie wins.
So, Corey, I thought you picked China Spring.
I did.
I was the only one that picked Bernie in our group.
I picked Bernie.
Oh, well, I'm talking about our group. I didn't know who you picked. I haven't listened to that show yet. I hadn't gotten that far yet.
Yeah, it's the gut feeling. You know, as a fan, you don't want them to win, but you know, as the gut feeling is Bernie takes. I don't know. It may be a game like tonight, like Brock
I think it
and
will.
you know,
Yeah.
because Bernie's defense is solid and China Springs is really good. And you guys mentioned it. Yes, you guys mentioned it earlier. Wembley and Carthage. You know, Carthage. Hey, listen. If Wembley beats Carthage, you know, it may just be a new win somewhere in Texas. I don't know. Carthage didn't lose state championship games, right?
Yeah.
So
So
they have to eventually.
you
Well,
know,
Yeah, that's your
everybody
theory,
falls.
Corey. That's your theory. Remember?
Everybody
Yeah,
goes
that's your
down.
theory.
It's just,
Well,
you
both
know,
were in a close game. What happens? Both of them were in a close game. So
absolutely.
how do you decide the winner if two of them are in a close game?
Well, then what he's going to do is he's just going to remember the one that wins the thing.
And they call it that one. Yeah.
They call it-
I think it's funny in today's world of hyper opinions and stuff. And I'll compare Dallas has been blowing everybody all off, and they lose to Houston. Everybody's like, oh my God, what's wrong with the Cowboys? And people are doing that to Carthage. It's like, why are you looking at the last performance? Let's look at the first 13 performances and understand that Hudson White, if he'd have been healthy, would have put up monster numbers. He's maybe the Class 4A Division I Player of the Year, but he won't get it because he didn't play enough games in the regular season. But just because Glenn Rose did it does not automatically mean the next opponent can take everything Glenn Rose did and win. And also, by all accounts, that defensive end for Carthage might be playing. And it looks like he's on track, and that could completely change everything too, because Glenn Rose took advantage of that late in that second half.
Yeah. Well, you know, Terry, it's the what have you done for me lately rule. So I love that you know you've done all of this, you know, up until this point, but today you stink.
Basically.
Yeah, and that's what people remember, right? But I'm most excited for the PNG and SOC game. I've been saying, you know, all week Dallas over everything. So I'm hoping this starts the trend and all these Dallas schools get the win. I think that'll be great.
Don't tell Chris that. He's going reach across the
Listen, you got to double the acronym bowl. This is it. This is
right.
it.
So tomorrow night sets the tone. That SOC they have to get this win. They
Dude,
have
that's
to
gonna
get
be-
this win
I
to
did
set
pick
it up.
them. I did pick
Okay.
them. I'm just not going to pick
wait.
Duncanville.
What you
They,
picked them? They're
I
from
picked
Dallas,
SOC
Chris.
because 3 weeks in a row I picked against them and they kept winning. I'm like, fine.
Yeah.
Well, that's those stands are going to be packed, man. PNG travels well. South Oak Cliff has, somehow they've been able to win and be repeating and yet still be the darlings. Now, if they come back next year, people will start going, okay, we're getting tired of y'all winning. But there might be 75,000 people there legitimately tomorrow for that game. And I think that is one of the interesting games because South Oak Cliff this year has been absolutely just trials and tribulations and injuries and tough schedules and stuff. And we go back to, does that bear fruit? Or do they get into the game and just finally they're wore down emotional, physically and all that. PNG's just kind of been winning their games and not like they're not supposed to, but they keep winning and now they're here. And I don't know that I smell upset in that game for some weird reason. And I picked South Oak Cliff in the preview show.
Okay, so you did go with them. Okay.
Man, my picks are kind of all over the place. I'm gonna be honest with you. I just want to see some good football. I don't even care. I think I'm 0 for like 6 or something. I don't know how many. I don't know how many games have been played yet. But I love to watch the games. When we watched Howley earlier, I didn't even pick them to win.
Vince, you are 0 for. You have not got one right yet.
I ain't got one right. And yet
I'm
telling you, I'm sitting there smiling because every time I see something that amazes me, and I'm like, man,
it's
when
okay.
I saw that kid for Howley, I was like, oh, I didn't know about. I heard I'd been hearing his name all year, but I don't know how I missed the fact that the kid was like 6'2" or something like that, 225. And when I heard those measurements, and then I saw the first touchdown, I was like, oh, this is gonna be good.
Vince
I got excited. I was like, "Oh yeah," my mouth started watering. I was like, "Yeah, this."
It's okay. I've only got one right, so I'm not doing too much better.
I'll take one. I'll take one over anything right now.
You got 2, Corey.
Got 2.
Yeah, so it's been a rough one.
Hey, Corey, I don't know if you saw the chat here, but you got another trend there. The team that's on the home side is winning all but one game so far.
See, we're joking about this, but this
what
stuff
theory
is serious.
number is that? We need to make a theory.
You're gonna have him. You're gonna have him with a poster board. He's got the red yarn going over.
Oh yeah. He's got all the little.
Yeah, he's gonna step back, and all the numbers are gonna
Like
be going
Sherlock
through his
over
head.
there, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, some cheeseburger drops in his mind, and he gets all distracted. He has to go back to it and start all over again.
Yeah.
Well, there's smoke. There's more smoke.
Like somebody smoking meat. What'd you say?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Man. Yeah, I think tomorrow's overall is going to be some. There's going to be some good ones. I think
it starts ugly, but then the last two, I think, are going to be really, really good games, and I think you're going to have. I don't know. This game proves what we always say: you can pick all these games all you want, but you can never account for turnovers, injuries, and penalties.
So Terry, you're officially saying that first game's going to be a blowout?
I've said it all. Yeah, I've said it.
I've said it. Now Chris may reach across the screen and get you, Terry. He's
wait, but who's going?
I could just do that.
Oh wow! He's got control.
Who are you picking for the win?
He's going to pick Wembley, I'm sure.
He's picking Wembley.
Chris knows. Chris has lived in Wembley and he knows them. I'm picking Carthage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, Chris can never say anything about a homer pick ever in his life. See.
Come on now, you
was playing
Tyler Chapel Hill.
I understand.
In games they're not even in,
and I own it.
Yeah,
you can never say that.
Brady's died.
We're talking about Franklin and Brock, and you're talking about Chapel Hill.
I was laughing. I was like, man, listen, Brett, you gotta let it go.
It's okay. But if there's anybody else, Carthage is playing anybody else, you'd pick Carthage probably.
And I think Carthage should win this game.
See, there you go. See,
but I've got to pick Wembley.
See, that's how we feel.
Yeah.
No, I get that, but this kind of works against the close game theory because I think for Wembley, it hurts them that Carthage had this scare in the last round because
now they're going to be prepared.
Yeah, you're going to shore up any things that Glen Rose showed that could be an issue. That doesn't mean they do it, but again, I trust 8 for 8 in-state Scott Surratt to have the adjustments that are going to be. And I just think Carthage is physically a better team. And I keep going back to this. They're an older team, and that matters. Wembley has a sophomore quarterback. Wembley has a young offensive line that's going to eventually gel, and they've been good this year, but they're literally going up against 3 D1 type guys, and that's just – I just don't think that Wembley will be able to do much.
Now, keep in mind, too, I believe Carthage, they're going for 9 out of 9 state titles. Yeah, so, I mean – they've been doing this, man, for a while.
That goes to Corey's theory. Eventually, they've got to lose.
No, some investigation is going to happen.
Investigation. It makes me question: could they move up and do this at the next?
I pay money to see Carthage and Linda and Longview. I pay money to see that.
Oh yeah.
Are y'all crazy?
Wait, you don't want to watch Carthage and Longview?
Why would I want to watch Longview just donkey stomp Carthage? That would just not be enjoyable. That's one of
this is why the game has to be played. This is why we
that's why you need Friday Night Legends.
You go to the board game. You can play that game, and then
you need the board game because you don't want Carthage to get hurt by Longview, like physically. Look, Carthage is great at 4A Division II, and they would compete at 4A Division I, and they could probably even compete a little bit at 5A Division II. But this is like that argument where you say the best college team could beat the worst NFL team. No, they couldn't, and it wouldn't even be close because there are holes on Carthage's side that Longview is 2 and 3 deep on just because of the amount of students. Now, give Carthage the same amount of people, then we'll talk. But just
that's what I was gonna say. Like if they were to play, do you have like some type of rule in place where if Carthage has 75, Longview can only play 75 or something like that?
Why would you help
Carthage? Yeah, why would you help Carthage?
No.
But if you're going to play them, you got to play them.
If you're gonna play them, you gotta.
That's the beauty of the board game. It's got a strength of schedule built in, so that the smaller schools don't have as many coaching points to spend. So it makes it realistic, because, like you said, they like Terry said, Longview would destroy them. And in the game, Longview is probably going to destroy them too, even though the stats are better. And you think it's based on stats. It's based on stats plus strength of competition.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Be a good
I mean, it's fair. It's a good point. I've had this conversation earlier, and the person I was talking to, he kind of said the same thing. I just was like, well, I mean, I still want to see it.
I'm excited. I'm excited to play the game, Chris. I actually got this for a family member for Christmas. Got a couple of the games, and so I'm excited to try to give it a shot.
Sweet. Yeah, you'll definitely have to tell us about your games.
I'm pretty sure he's going to pick Chapel Hill.
I'm pretty sure Chapel Hill's not in the box. I'm going to have to pay for that one, Chris. I'm sure. They'll probably double charge me extra.
That's DLC. That's DLC. Yeah. You got to get that
later. Brett has Chapel Hill with unlimited coaching points. They're just they're going for it on 4th and 30 because he knows he can. That's like when Chris does
I have a friend who loves Refugio, so he has some of the great Refugio teams. And somehow, no matter who they play, it's always 65 to 64, triple overtime, and Refugio always wins. So if you're playing by yourself, you can kind of make whatever result you want.
Chris, you just gave yourself a brand new avenue for the board games, and that's greatest teams from the schools. I don't mean 1 year.
Oh, yeah.
I mean the best left tackle from the 66 team, and you have the right tackle from the 77
all-star team from each team.
You combine them. That would be a blast to play.
Nice. Yeah, we played tournaments like all the great Katy teams, playing against each other. Those are fun. And that's what's cool about it, is I can take 1940 Massillon, and take that amazing old team and play them against Carthage, from this year if I wanted to.
At least we know one team would have full pads, the other team would just have leather helmets.
Missing teeth. But to be fair, that old Massillon team probably has a couple 35-year-olds that were on the team.
Sure.
If you want to have fun,
go Newports.
If you want to have fun, go research some of the old football across the nation, and it was regular for teams to have a 27-year-old, a 28-year-old, and they would literally pay him just to play high school football.
Yeah,
wow,
good stuff. And that's half the fun of creating that game, is doing the research on those teams. Those are fascinating, like you said.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Cool. All right. We didn't preview everything, did we? We just talked about a couple teams.
We previewed. We've basically previewed all three games. Yeah,
okay.
We got all three in there.
Terry basically said Carthage is going to blow them out. Then the other two games should be close.
Carthage is going to win so bad that at the end of the day tomorrow, UIL is just going to go ahead and award them the other two trophies, and then they're going to take Longview's one state championship since the 30s and just go ahead and give it to Carthage as well. That's how bad it's going to be.
Hey, is it like a mercy rule? They're going to implement the 6-man rules?
Right. Oh my gosh, man! That how would you like to drive if you're one of those schools one year, like you're out near Alpine and you drive the 9.5 hours to get to Dallas to watch the 2 6-man games, and then they're both over by the third quarter because of the mercy rule? That would be so frustrating.
Oh man,
yeah.
Well, Terry, I can't wait till tomorrow's wrap-up show, because I'll play some clips of you saying how badly Carthage is going to win.
Go ahead. I stand by.
He believes it. He believes it.
Hey, see,
Terry said, "I'm gonna die on that hill."
Everybody listens to Terry's picks every week, so he always has to. If he's wrong, he's gonna. I mean, there's no way getting around it. He can't change it.
And that's an easy hill to die on. I'm dying drinking a Mai Tai.
That is true. That is true.
I mean, it's just, again,
that's Carthage is a safe bet for sure.
Yeah, exactly. That's just a safe bet.
Just like Brad Pitt said in Troy, the kid asked him, the kid comes up to him and he tells him, he's the biggest fighter I've ever seen. He's like, I wouldn't fight him. And Brad Pitt says, and that's why no one will ever remember your name. Exactly. You gotta go for it. You gotta go for it. Gotta be that guy that goes for it. That's why I have so many theories.
Well, Jimmy Johnson used to say, if you're gonna play a gorilla, you just come out swinging with a big stick. But part two of that is you have to have the players that can swing the stick. You can come out swinging all you want. You're just mismatched.
Absolutely.
You're just mismatched, and you're gonna eventually that catches up to you. And
well, since we're throwing out quotes, Mike Tyson says everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Exactly. Punched in the mouth.
Exactly.
That happened a couple times today by a couple teams. Punched the other team in the mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what was fun about Franklin and Brock. They were hitting each other in the mouth, helping each other up, and let's go do it again. Right. I mean, that game was played between tackle to tackle. I got to a point where I was just watching the lines, and the great thing is they both just flip over, so they're seeing each other all game, and there are just absolute battles inside there, trying to open those gaps, trying to close those gaps. And even that last Brock tackle by the linebacker that stopped the touchdown, number 2, if you notice, that dude just came in and threw his back into it. He knew he could not bring water.
He just slugged the hole with his back.
He did what Jalen Smith did, except for he did it in the play and not 10 minutes after the play.
Another thing I noticed too, Terry, is as much as they battled tonight, we saw on TV, they showed it. Both teams came to the middle, and Brock's coach was leading them in prayer, like they were all kneeling. I thought that was a really cool sportsmanship deal. I mean, they both gave it everything they had tonight, and they were able to come together at the end and be good sports about it.
Oh, we jokingly called it the sideline bowl because we do coaches shows with both coaches,
right?
And both amazing guys. Like first and foremost, before you call them great coaches, they're great guys, and they're great coaches. Watch the tape and watch how many times when both of them were in pressure situations, they're just calmly coaching. They're not screaming, they're not yelling. There was one time where Mathis on the interception kind of threw his headset down, but he immediately picked it back up, and you could tell he had that moment. He got mad, and then he calmed down. I so appreciate that over some coaches that are running downfield to get officials after every play. They're screaming, they're yelling, they're bringing up plays from earlier in the game. That's just not good coaching.
Well, and they're not putting a good example out there for their kids.
No,
they're a role model for their kids, and that's one of the things that
I would tell you that a lot of casual fans were probably thinking, gosh, this is a boring game because there weren't a lot of offensive highlights. But for me, this was the best kind of game period because you could, like you said, you could watch the lines, you could watch the chess match of it all. It was fascinating, slugfest.
Yeah, I love games like this too.
Yeah, people don't, and after a while, you watch enough football, you don't watch the game, you kind of watch the coaches. And I always say this on our basketball broadcast, it's a chess match between coaches. A guy long enough is like, all right, I know what he's going to do. All right, let's see what he's going to do now. And then you're thinking, now you don't want to overthink. Now you think, I'm pretty sure they turn the mic off or turn the headset off, and he's in his head like, I know what he's doing now. I know what he's going to do. Mm-hmm. He's going to run, timeout. Just he's in that's the chess match between coaches that I love. You've played each other enough times to know exactly what's going to happen, or you suspect it, then you use your instinct. And then that's when I heard a coach tell me one time, he said, during the games, I stopped coaching. I can't coach you anymore. Right now, I need you to understand exactly what's going on in the game. I'm not going to teach you right now. I'm going to coach you a little bit. That's the opposite. I'm not going to coach. I'm not going to teach you. I'm going to coach you. And so
I totally agree.
In the game.
I was trying to find it.
Right on.
Did anybody know? Did y'all ever see that? How many people were at this game? 13,721. So that's a really good, solid crowd. And then again, they'll start stepping up exponentially tomorrow with going into 4A and 5A and all that. And of course, we have all the preview shows that are up for those games, all the Saturday games. Those preview shows will go up tomorrow, and then we'll meet back here tomorrow night at 10 p.m. and we're going to do this again, talking about tomorrow's 3 games.
Right on, guys. I want to thank all of you for being a part of it, and all the fans for tuning in and checking us out.
All right.
Go Niners.
Gridiron Warriors take the field in an epic battle that is larger than life. It is called Texas High School Football. Only one show can bring the greatest sport from the greatest state in the focus. Lone Star Gridiron.
StarGridiron.com. Access the complete history of Texas high school football, over 100 years of information, win-loss records, coaching histories, individual stats, records, and more. Lone Star Gridiron, the authority on